Hello, my name is Kathy Ayton, and this is a slideshow about my Translanguaging Action Research Project. I'd like to discuss a little bit about me just so that you understand why this is so important to me. This is actually my third career. I was in the Navy for a long time, and I also worked for Xerox Corporation. And I traveled, I met a lot of people. I met a lot of people from other places who spoke different languages. Anyways, I've really had a lot of world experience, and it's very important to me to be able to access every student's background and really appreciate them and include them. In fact, this quote I think says it really well. Our job is to teach the students we have, not the ones we would like to have, not the ones we used to have, those we have right now, all of them. This is by Dr. Kevin Maxwell. This philosophy is how I picked my research topic. This study investigates the use of input-output translanguaging strategies in elementary school classrooms to help English learners improve their reading comprehension. Reading is so important. I know there were a couple of terms you may not be familiar with, the input-output translanguaging strategies, and I'm going to explain them next. So first of all, translanguaging. Long definition here, but I'll explain it. The act performed by multilinguals of accessing different linguistic features or various modes of what are described as autonomous languages to maximize the communicative potential. In my research for this project, translanguaging was one of the things developed instead of thinking of languages in isolation. In other words, thinking of somebody who speaks English and Spanish as having two completely separate parts of their brain and saying, don't use both. This is actually the opposite, which is what research supports. People who have access, students, children in particular, to all their language resources do better. The input-output part, that's to do with, we have two methods of communicating. We read and listen, that's how we take in information. We write and speak, that's how we output information. And it's been shown that when we switch the languages during the input and output modes, we get greater understanding. For instance, in my study, we read in one language, we speak in another. We talk in one language and discuss it and then write in another. So we're switching which languages we use as we switch input and output. The advantages are this capitalizes on a student's home language knowledge and cultural assets. And this was a key recommendation of one of my resources, the National Academy of Science study, which actually was a synthesis of multiple studies, 17 big ones, tons of small studies, all synthesized. And this was a key recommendation. And the other part is that this can be used by all teachers, not just bilingual teachers. Bilingual teachers are amazing, but there's not enough of them, especially not enough for all the English learners that we have and all the different languages that they speak. So I mentioned the Academy of Science of one of my resources. I also investigated a lot of translanguaging studies that were done in bilingual classrooms. That's primarily where they've been done so far. And then as far as critical friends, we weren't actually assigned one during my part of the master's program. However, I have consulted with a bilingual teacher who's a friend of mine and also some bilingual students. They're actually adults now, but they are students who have been through a bilingual system. Why is this project important? It will come as no surprise that we have a whole lot of English learners that need our help. And in fact, if you look at the graphic on the left, you'll see that 1 in 5 students in California is an English learner. So it's very important to find good ways to help. And the pie chart there shows a whole bunch of languages. There's actually over 400 of them spoken in the US, but this shows sort of the large group in California. Also, I mentioned before that bilingual is best. That is what the studies show, that it's best for them academically, but it's also best for students in their identity formation and actually gives them advantages cognitively as well. And the number of bilingual students or English learner students has increased greatly, but sadly the number of bilingual teachers has decreased. So we need to find a way that those of us who are not bilingual or who aren't bilingual in all the needed ways in the classroom can help these students. My research questions are: how does the use of the input-output translanguaging strategy affect the English learner's reading comprehension, reading comprehension being so important? And then also, that's the academic side. For the social emotional side, how does using this strategy lower, hopefully, the affective filter of English learners by including their home language and their knowledge? My methodology, I used an experimental and control group. The two groups, 6 students in each group, they're all English learners, Spanish as a home language. This is because the school that I'm working in is predominantly Hispanic, and in order to have 12 students in one classroom speaking one second language, Spanish was the obvious choice. The stories are engaging, grade level appropriate, multicultural, and available in English and Spanish. 2 of them are actually fiction and 1 is a nonfiction. The schedule of the small group. The first week, the small group meets and discusses the story in English only and reads and discusses it in English to establish a baseline. No translanguaging yet. In the second and third week, the experimental group actually reads the story in Spanish, that's their input, and discusses it in English, that's their output. And then for the control group, they continue to read in English and discuss in English. We'll be collecting the data 2 ways. One is that they'll compare written answers to a rubric so that we can see, has their reading comprehension improved? And the other way is with an interview designed to look at if there's been any change in the participants' affective filter. Has it been helpful to them? Are they better able to learn because they're less intimidated for whatever reason? Something you can only get through an interview. And once we analyze and compare that, we will be able to tell whether it helped the students. We'll also compare it to the control group to make sure it's not just because we're doing the study and everybody got better. So that's the plan. Thank you very much.